This is
Positively
Hygiene with your host, Amber Lovatos
Amy Prenti
and Angela Doe.
Listen on as we dive into the positive of dental hygiene.
Okay, so I just learned recently that there's more associations than just the ADHA. So I want to know if you are both either members of any other associations.
So I am actually a member of NAP, National Association of Parliamentarians. I know it seems like separate from dental hygiene, but it's because I'm Speaker of the House for Texas. Not that you have to be a parliamentarian or within the organization, but for me, that's what I chose to do. And it's funny because I get stuff in the mail and it says NAP, like NAP. And then my husband's like, what is this?
I'm a part of the Hispanic Dental Association, the Texas Oral Health Coalition, and I was a member of ADEA, the American Dental Education or Educators Association, something like that. Yeah. And obviously I'm a member of the ADHA.
So now how did you find each of these that you are a part of?
The ADHA was really from hygiene school because I know at least at my school, we had to be members, a student member. And so that's how we found out about it. And they always like encouraged us to go to meetings. And then there was also like student leadership roles, like second year in dental hygiene, I was the president of SADA, the student chapter of ADHA. That's how I found that. As far as parliamentarians, I think when I was looking about being a parliamentarian, that is what came up. And they had a study guide for you to do. And I don't know if there's any like subparts of
what is parliamentarian for those who don't know.
Well, that was me. I was going to ask the same thing. I don't know. You can, so go ahead.
So,
I'm curious.
A parliamentarian is the reason I found out about it is really through ADHA and being a student member at that time. So the association, at least for our association, even the local component for ADHA, because we're talking about different associations here. For our local association, we ran by a set of rules called Robert's Rules of Order. And I guess it's a nerdy part. I loved it. I loved how like organized and how there were steps to go through everything, especially for a big organization, especially for people who have different voices. It was a way to collectively allow every voice to be heard and allow a organization to bring change forward. So there are parliamentarian rules and how things are said and done. So if you have like a House of Delegates and you want to make change, there are steps and rules to make sure people who want to be heard are heard and to get changes and make changes to move forward. And so I wanted to like help facilitate that. I always thought it was so cool when the Speaker of the House, who's in charge of who facilitates like the whole voting process of the House of Delegates and going over rules and bylaws, that I wanted to be a parliamentarian. It was sort of one of the first steps. There's like 3 stages if you want to be one.
Angela's a very good Speaker of the House.
This is my 3rd year, so it's exciting.
I'm a member of the Hispanic Dental Association, and there was a Hispanic Dental Association chapter at my school. I was not involved as a student. I became more involved as a professional, and I will say I've not been a very good member. I pay my dues, but they've been really good. I would say, like, you can apply they have scholarships for dental students and hygiene students. They've always been very supportive. Like when I came out with my book, they like pushed out my book. They're always encouraging us to like be more involved. I recently spoke for the Hispanic Dental Association. This past weekend, they had their conference, and that was such a great experience. I'm also part of the ADEA. ADEA, I heard from also as a student, we were student members of ADEA. So I would say that was like the good thing about my school or Angela's and our school, that they did keep us very involved. But you could be a student member. And then when I became an educator, I was also a member. And a lot of like educators will be a part of this association. There's also like a Texas group one, but I was a part of mostly ADEA. And I got a scholarship through them. I got 2 scholarships through them. Yeah. I got the scholarship for dental hygienists pursuing academic careers. And then that one was a pretty big one. I think it was like $3,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And then plus I think they paid for my travel. That one was sponsored by Crest OB. So shout out to Crest. I've been longstanding supporter. They've been alongside supporter of me. And then I received another one. I think that was like $1,500. they're hard to get into to speak, but I recently spoke for them for their allied directors meeting, and man, they put me like in a suite. Okay,
Okay.
some
Okay.
places won't even like want to pay for your hotel for you to go and speak for them, and they like flew me out, paid for my honorarium, like, and not like a small like honorarium. They had like a significantly budgeted honorarium, and they put me in a suite.
So was this conference for all educators or just the directors of every hygiene school?
Directors for allied programs, so dental assisting, dental hygiene, dental tech, like everything. All allied. But just the directors, not like general educators. It was cool. It was a cool conference. For the Texas Oral Health Coalition, it's a association coalition really focused on the oral health of Texans, not so much focused on us as a profession versus ideas like education and students and educators and helping educators, and Hispanic Dental Association is for helping Hispanic communities get dental care. Texas Oral Health Coalition is focused on Texans and oral health. So water fluoridation, like PSAs, like public service announcements. Like Angela and I were both on a program with them to promote water fluoridation on social media. They do like put out educational programs for the community, try to lobby for water fluoridation, and they do a variety of like preventative programs to try and help just Texans in general. They work with like nurses and physicians. You don't have to be a dental professional to be in this group.
Well, it's interesting because now that you say that, I do remember in school there was a similar coalition as in Connecticut that they funded research amongst all of the children populations throughout the state of how many kids had caries, untreated caries, all of these things. And it was actually their research was the information that I used when I met to try to advocate for the dental therapist position. So I never even thought, that that's something you could be a part of. I saw their stats and I saw all of the data they had collected, and I thought, what an amazing, gift this is to have this information at hand. I never thought of being involved. So it's really cool that you've seen that side of it.
Yeah, so that's very much what Texas Oral Health Coalition does. It is a lot of data and very good, like, and important data. And I know, like, maybe sometimes we suggest, like, who cares about the data? It is so important, especially when trying to get grants, when trying to, like, get funding, when trying to get support. It's not just Amber saying, like, hey, like, children in this area are in need. No, this different separate coalition is telling us that this is the stats, this is the data.
And that's really cool. It's so important because, like you said, you can't meet blindly with someone and say, I want this to get passed because of X, Y, and Z. You have to put on paper and show the numbers of this is the impact we will make if we do this.
And I love how, Amber, you talked about how HDA, the Hispanic Dental Association, supported you when you did your book and other stuff. And they really and I think that's a big point about these organizations and associations is that they're there to support you.
Yeah, ADIA actually recently, they told me that they're going to release I'm not even a member of ADIA anymore because I'm no longer an educator. They're going to put out a news blast about my timepiece.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
That's
and I was like,
awesome.
what? They don't have to do that, but that's so sweet, right? Yeah, yeah.
Well, give us, for those who don't know you, Amber, what is your timepiece?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so everybody knows, I'm sure, times 100, like times 100 most influential people. I am not one of the 100. I didn't quite make the cut. I am times 101. I work for Crestro B, right? But Crestro B is one brand. There are like tons of brands within P&G, okay? And in P&G, there's like Puffs, there's Charmin, there's Tide, there's a bunch of brands, okay? And so all these brands were bidding to promote or nominate a person who they know who is making an impact in the community. So oral care, Crestro OB, nominated me, and I guess beat out people from all these other brands. And so then time came to when I was in an event in Virginia, they followed me around with their cameras, and then they flew me out to New York City, and I had to be in the Time building, and they did my makeup. They hired somebody to do my makeup. The guy who did my makeup has also done my Mariah Carey's makeup.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And for anybody who is Latino. No, Talia. She's also done Talia's makeup, which for me was like a bigger flex. It was a super cool experience.
And you said Dia's gonna do like a news blast about
Yeah.
it. That's cool. That's cool that they're like not still that they support, and it's great to see the support because I feel like even as students we were supported too. I know with ADHA there was like scholarships for students and grants, and so Amy, you said as a student you were, because I know Amber and I are from the same school, different years. We had to join ADHA as students. Was that the same for you in
Yes.
Connecticut?
We were mandated to be part of the student. I was co-president of my hygiene class, so I did receive a grant going into my second year, which was really nice from SADA. But I am not like a part of any association, and I think this was a lot of it. So during school, our conference, Connecticut has its own conference. It's tiny. You guys would laugh at it because I think the like entire count of people is probably in like the
Okay, so I would tell
under
you
100.
Okay. When I was president, or when we were president at separate times of the Greater Houston Dental Hygiene Association, so the component here in Houston, when I was president, I think we had over 300 members. I had more members in my city as president that I had to lead than a lot of states had members.
Really?
Yeah.
I
And I
see,
think we were the largest.
We were the largest component
too.
Wow. Okay.
That probably has gone down now, but at least during my presidency, pre-COVID, right before COVID.
So this conference was the Nutmeg Conference. So Connecticut, I don't know if you know, it's a nutmeg state. I don't know why. I don't even know what a nutmeg tree looks like, but that's what we are, and we're proud. So it's the Nutmeggers Conference, and we had someone speaking on behalf of the ADHA, and this was they said, you can go to whatever CE courses you want to, but this ADHA meeting is mandated. And so, we all went and we sat there for it. And the speaker that they had was extremely aggressive. And I don't like confrontation. So this has hit me on the wrong chord altogether. I don't like confrontation. I don't like being almost scolded into like joining something, told I have to do something. I want to. I want you to deliver the value to me and let me want to invest in it. That's how I am. So the speaker that they had at this conference was saying all this negative stuff about the ADA. They were saying how the ADA every year collects like so much money, and they just use their money to suppress hygienists, where the ADHA only raised maybe an eighth of that amount of money. But at the time, they were really pushing mid-level practitioners, and they were just saying how we've been able to advance our career despite the dentists out there fighting against us, and despite their unlimited bank account and them trying to suppress us, that we were able to do it, and that we're going to be able to take them down. It was this whole like we were rallying a war, and I was like, oh man, like I want to work with dentists. Like I don't want to be out there trying to take them down. Like why? It's restorative, it's preventative. Equally important, different avenues. Why not just advocate for ourselves to better what we are, not funding money to try to take someone down that we should be working with? So that was my one interpretation of the entire association, and from that moment, I made my decision. I was like, this isn't something for me. This isn't something that I want to be a part of. And I still advocated on my own behalf. I met with my state reps to talk about things that I believed in, but I never chose to be part of an association because to me, that was just my take. That was my one snippet I ever got. And it wasn't something I saw myself wanting to be a part of.
I think it's so important for us as leaders to remember how we present ourselves and the impact of how we present ourselves, like that, the impact that could potentially make. And I think a lot of times it is hard to be a leader, I will say. I think a lot of times we think about it as an us thing versus an association thing. And I am definitely very, very guilty of that.
When you're in hygiene school, you're being taught by instructors who have been clinical, hygienists for some time in their previous career. Well, for us at least, I know we had a lot of hygienists that were post-clinical retirement in their 50s, 60s. So it was just this uplifting environment of, I looked up to them. And then it was such a contrast to go to this conference and to have it projected to me as, you're being told hygiene is limitless in school. Hygiene's limitless. It's going to go places like your hygiene today is going to be so different 10 years from now. Like it was just always a positive message. And then I just felt like in that meeting, it was more, the focus was to put down the ADA so that we could advance. But then like from what I was getting from my professors, we on our own being great are going to advance. And I would like to, like you were saying, that one meeting can make or break your takeaway and your, I guess, like an association's reputation.
Look, I received a grant through them. I received $10,000 from them, the Mars Wrigley grant, for my outreach initiative. That was huge. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to go out and serve the people of Waller, Texas. I would not have portable dental equipment. That support was huge. Angela's received a scholarship through them.
Yes, an IOH, Institute of Oral Health Scholarship.
I have also received a scholarship through them. And so with a combination of scholarships from AHA and the DIA, I really didn't pay anything out of pocket for my master's. I didn't finish my master's, but when I was like very, very close, yeah, hardly anything. So there was like some supports there. Currently, my gripe with ADHA is that I've been appointed to the Diversity and Inclusion Equity Committee, and it is, in my opinion, for show. And I've had my run-ins with the ADHA, just some very hard situations. It's hard. I'm still a member. I'm a member for some of the advocacy stuff. There are some good advocacy things that they have done.
Yeah, I would say that's why I became a member, and my experience is different from y'all. But like when I was a student, the vibe I got was that they are a voice. There's really nothing else this big of a magnitude, as big as ADHA, to advocate for us for what we do. And I think that's what I feel gets lost sometimes, not within this conversation, but just outside of like other hygienists that I've talked to, is that there's no one else protecting our profession. It's this association that's hopefully helping us protect it. So like if dental assistants have expanded practice, who's there to fight it? ADHA's helped. Well, I say ADHA, but it's really like your state TDHA, your local component, is there to help you fight it. Or wanting expanded duties, who's there to write up, contact legislators, and make that happen.
So a story related to that was prior to, I think, you graduating, there was the Sunset Act. Did you?
Yes.
Okay. So during the Sunset Act, that basically states the rules for the Texas State Dental Board, for a Dental Practice Act, and they had made some changes in that time about polishing and sealants for dental assistants. And so when that act came out, they had that dental assistants in Texas could polish and apply sealants with just on-the-job training.
Okay, I remember hearing about this.
And before that, I had graduated already.
Okay.
I was working in like managing my office then. So before that, dental assistants had to get certifications for polishing and sealants.
Almost like an EFTA kind of
Yes,
thing, right?
like an EFTA.
Like an EFTA. Okay.
So that was a huge thing and a huge like misinformation that a lot of people still think is still true, and it's not.
Yes, that was like a short window.
It was super short.
It was super short.
At that point, Texas Dental Hygienists Association stepped in and was like, no, they need to have 2 years of experience. They worked with the Texas State Dental Board and lobbied on our behalf so that assistants would have to polish. They can polish, but they put in there that polishing only by an assistant, you cannot bill for a pro fee for that. That's huge for us.
Well, because it's not a pro fee. Polish is like a courtesy. It's
right. But if they were doing it
clinically-
like on a kid and all they're going to do is brush and polish,
yeah, you can't.
and me as a hygienist, I could do that and bill for a pro fee, right? Like a child pro fee.
Yeah.
But they put in there that a dentist or a hygienist has to scale in order for it to be billed as a pro fee. They still have to have, 2 years, they have to take a CODA approved course for polishing and for sealants. And if it wasn't for TDHA, that would have really hurt, I think, hygienists, especially in pedo.
Yeah.
No, I can see that.
For sure. And so, I remember like once that changed, and the only reason like I knew it changed right away was because I was, in leadership in TDHA. I made sure people knew, and people were like, oh no, I could I would interview dental assistants like, well, I can help do that. I'm like, no, you can't. And they're like, well, I'm doing it at my office now. You shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's things like that. And that, can get lost to where if we didn't have our local and state associations, some of those things can get under the radar. And it seems like before being naive about associations, you would think, oh, I guess the government, I don't know who I thought was in charge of what our career responsibilities are, or that it was just like known fact. And this is what dental hygienists do. But it's really the associations that help. And not just ADHA, but anything. Like my sister's a occupational therapist. She's a part of her association because they have similar things that we're struggling with in terms of duties. And so I realized, oh my gosh, like this is where the only part we can make change and advocate for us.
Yeah, I would say the other like pro to ADHA, which is why it's like a struggle for me. So I'm still a member, even though I feel like they've hurt me as an individual. I will say something that I have gained from the ADHA is leadership, is networking, is job opportunities. The majority of like when I got my job as an educator was because I was at a Texas Dental Hygienists Association conference and I saw my former educator and I was like, hey, I'm pursuing a master's and I am interested in teaching. Let me know if a position comes up. It was through that networking. And they saw my work in the association, my work in outreach. They taught me a lot about leadership. And so through that, I got my work teaching. I've met great people like Angela.
Yeah, we met through the association.
Really?
Yeah. Because we were both active in like leadership and wanting to be in leadership. And Amber like was very open and wanted people, I mean, she is still very open, but like wanted people to come in and very welcoming, that she sort of like grabbed me and like added me in group chats that I'm like, oh, okay. There's like 5 other people that I've only met very briefly. But she like really took me in and wanted me to be a part of this and help me grow in leadership as well. And yeah, we have a great group of friends from all over Texas because of
with
it.
very different backgrounds.
That we wouldn't have met otherwise.
No. And so I try not to blame the actions of individual people, like in the situations that happened to me, are individual people who made those decisions on the association as a whole. And as a mission as a whole, right?
You're making me feel guilty now. Maybe I shouldn't have wrote off the entire association based on one speaker.
I mean, it's tough, man. I think it's a personal decision. And I think like, I totally respect people who are like, no, I don't want to be a member of the ADHA. Totally get that. And then I also understand people really wanting to be members of the association. It's tough, but I did gain a lot.
I do also feel from someone who's not a member, and I know a lot of people that are not members, I do think 2 things that hold people back from joining associations are the fear of commitment of time and the fear of money, paying dues. Would you say money across the board, is it a similar dollar amount from each of these associations annually?
No.
So it's all different.
Yeah, National Association of Parliamentarians, last time was like a year membership for $99 or something. And the ADHA is different from every state because you have the national fees and then the state fees and then the component fees. And each component, each state, they can set their own fees.
And that's a big controversy because a huge part of the money goes to the National Association, ADHA, versus your state and your component. Like my component gets like $6, I think.
We've just increased it. But yeah, it's different for every state. Time commitment too, because...
Well, you can just be a member. You don't have to commit anything.
It's true.
And that's currently what not currently what I'm doing because I do serve on a committee. But basically, we didn't do anything. So yeah, basically right now what I'm doing is I'm just paying to be a member. And I support that way.
Everyone like making sure the component and the state stays active are all volunteers. So there's a lot of people behind that.
Huge time commitment.
Of time.
Huge time commitment. You don't have to do those things though. You could just be a member. With Hispanic Dental Association, I am a paid member and I do nothing for them. And honestly, I feel like they've done so much for me and I'm so appreciative for them that I want to do more for them.
I'm glad you brought that up, Amy, because I do feel like when you're a member, they want to recruit you to do something right away. And that's a lot of pressure and that scares people. But just being a member, being a number helps a lot because I think not to get too much into advocacy, but we're like, hey, we're this many strong hygienists in Texas who want this, that says something.
And we only represent less than 10% of hygienists in Texas. So that makes it hard when you go to legislation. We're like, we represent hygienists. And they're like, no, your numbers say you represent less than 10% of hygienists.
Yeah.
So just being a member has value.
Oh, I just want to say with that, and I don't think people know, but like in our local component, in our state, and probably in other associations too, you can apply for assistance to be a member. And some years those funds go untouched because no one does, but it's also, I feel like, not as advertised as much. Mm-hmm. So if you really want to be a member but have, need financial help, that's okay. Just go to your local component, go to your state and ask if they can help you with that. And, they're just happy people want to be involved and do something.
Now, so say today I'm a changed woman. I want to go onto adha.org and I'm going to become a member. What are the off the bat benefits that I would get? Is there stuff that I can access on the website by logging in? Is there...
So they have a mentor mentee program that they're launching, or they've been launching. So you can apply and then they'll connect you. I know they say like CE, so they can track your CEs too. You can take free CEs with them, or you can log on and input your CEs. So they have a tracker. You get discounts for annual conference. You can apply for their scholarships and their grants.
I will say, as a speaker, it has helped me in networking to go to the AHA annual conference, because I get to meet other leaders who could potentially bring me to speak for their state association. That's been a benefit for me as a speaker. They offer things like discounts on liability insurance with Texas having passed local anesthesia. You're going to need that.
Well, and just in terms of advocacy, then you can be a delegate to vote for these changes, or be a voice to help make these changes too.
Gosh, I don't want to complain about something and not be part of the change, right? And so that's why I'm still a member. That's why I'm still vocal. That's why I tell at least leadership internally about my stories and hopes for the change, right? I think they still have a lot of growth to do. There are a lot of benefits. I definitely would not be where I am in my career if it wasn't for the support of associations, not just the ADHA, but other associations in general. There is community. Community is so nice.
I know the associations we talked about here aren't the only ones that are out there. I remember there's a speaker, she made a huge list of different organizations and associations you can be part of. So if there's something you're interested in, it's out there, and join it, because it's great to be among like-minded people who support you and want to be there for you.
Yeah, and for those maybe don't feel welcome, but there's also the NDHA. It's the National Association for African American Dental Hygienists. And they are a great group. I've spoken for them. Great organization to join. I've also spoken for them. They're super welcoming, super awesome group. There are lots of associations that you could join.
And if it wasn't for these associations, let's just remember, we wouldn't be able to even place sealants.
Exactly.
I mean, wasn't that relatively recent?
That was a thing in Texas for sure. We, Cindy, one of the Cindys, she's a past president for Texas Dental Hygienists Association. And I remember her talking about how she was up there rallying for sealants back in the day. And I'm like, wow, that feels like forever ago for us, but it was still like in our...
I think that would be great to learn in school, because you're like, oh, you think that's part of what we can do, but really
so many things we haven't learned in
advocate
school,
for.
honestly.
I learned that when we learned local in Connecticut, they talked to us about, you can't do local in every state. They said most states. I think at the time it was 7 states didn't allow it. But they had said that, and and we were like, what? Some states can't do local? Like, that's crazy. And then
we were one of the
And then my teachers who had been hygienists in the 80s, they said like, yeah, well, we had to fight for fluoride. We had to fight for sealants. Like, it wasn't always just an open scope, and that change doesn't come without these associations. So I do see the positivity that being a member of this and being able to speak and advocate, it really does make a huge difference, not even just in the immediate future, but just the progression of our careers.
And if you're a member of an association or not, share with us. Like, we want to know, like, what pros have you seen? What cons? Share your experience with us. This wasn't as positive as an episode as we usually try to keep things, but we also want to keep things real for you. And so maybe the positive is that we all learned something today. Yeah,
absolutely. We'll see you next week.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to Positively Hygiene.
Join us every Tuesday for a new episode.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram for the opportunity for how you can contribute to our podcast.
And follow and review Positively Hygiene on Apple and Spotify podcast.